A global deal to cut government subsidies for commercial fisheries is top of the agenda for the World Trade Organization this year.
20 years into these talks, we are yet to conclude an agreement. Unsustainable fishing practices continue to take a toll on our oceans, encouraged by the government financial support we are seeking to discipline. Excellencies, the time for action is long overdue.
Since 2001, the WTO has been trying to address fisheries subsidies, which they say leads to excessive and illegal fishing and is depleting the world's fish stocks. Experts say that's a huge ecological crisis and will severely limit access to food and income, especially in developing countries. Tens of millions of people depend on fishing to make a living, and close to half the world's population relies on fish for protein. Local fishing operations have to compete with heavily subsidized large-scale fishing fleets that sail long distances to fill their boats. The WTO says global subsidies amount to as much as $54 billion a year. China, the United States, the European Union, Japan and South Korea subsidize fishing the most to protect their fishing industries and food security. One study shows that without large government subsidies, more than half the world's fishing grounds would not be making a profit. That's where the WTO comes in. It's the only organization that can set up and enforce global agreements on subsidies. Yet, so far, it's managed to negotiate only one multilateral agreement, and that was in 2013. India says it needs more time to phase out subsidies so as not to hurt local fishermen. China says it supports a resolution to wrap up negotiations by December and will do its part to develop the fisheries sector.
Excellencies, I believe that we're all genuinely committed, but a shift of mindset is necessary for us to bridge the final gaps that continue to separate members.
And bridging those gaps is what WTO members will need if they are to reach a deal by their own December 31st deadline. Junwei Sum, CGTN.
Well, for more on global fisheries and fishing subsidies, let's bring in Martin Smith. He's a distinguished professor of environmental economics at Duke University. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, 20 years of negotiations at the WTO. Do you think it likely that the ban on global fish subsidies will finally be agreed upon?
It seems like it's going in that direction. I think the current text is really one that deals with a lot of the nuances of the problem and addresses some of the concerns that different member states have.
Right. So environmentalists say a limit on subsidies is necessary to help fish populations recover. Could you put it into perspective for us? By eliminating subsidies, what kind of biomass increase can be practically expected?
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer. I think we can expect a modest increase in fishery biomass from eliminating subsidies. And the reason for that is twofold. Subsidies are part of a larger portfolio of how to more effectively govern fisheries for sustainable catches. So removing subsidies alone doesn't solve the main problem in fisheries, which is that they are a common pool resource, meaning that you need to find some way to exclude access to the fishery resources. So that's one element. And the second thing that sometimes is a little bit more subtle is that some subsidized fleets are already engaging in fisheries that are managed sustainably. So by removing subsidies, you aren't necessarily going to get a lot of benefit in terms of the sustainability. But that said, this is, again, part of a global strategy for increasing the sustainability of fisheries.
I guess you bring up this nuance, and here's a question. Will ending subsidies help or hurt smaller fishermen? There's probably two sides of this coin, right?
Yeah, there absolutely are. I think on net, it's likely that ending subsidies will help small-scale fishermen. And the reason for that is that many of the subsidies, a large portion, go to large-scale industrial fleets, some of which are fishing in territorial waters of developing nations that don't necessarily have the same capacity to enforce their fishing grounds or to enforce access agreements with other states. And some of those large-scale fishers, some of the large-scale trawlers in particular, impinge upon more nearshore waters that are really important for small-scale fishermen. And so it's likely that removing subsidies will help reduce some of these kinds of conflicts and actually make more fish available to the small-scale operators.
So on the other side then, Professor, are all fishing subsidies harmful? Where can they have actual value?
Well, it really depends on how you define a subsidy. And so if you're talking about building new boats or subsidizing fuel, it's really hard to argue that there's a benefit to doing that in the current state of affairs in global fisheries. There's a lot of, a lot of fishing capacity that's out there. And so by contributing to more of that fishing capacity, it's unlikely you're going to get much benefit. Right. But some people kind of perversely define things like spending money on port infrastructure and spending money to help build up markets and spending money to even regulate fisheries. Some people perversely have defined those as subsidies, but the literature has evolved in such a way that people now refer to things like that as, quote, good subsidies and not necessarily the bad subsidies.
Right. And of course, there's the environmental angle and then always the economics, right? We have nations that really depend on ocean fisheries. So it's a big local economy, a vital source of protein. How do they view this debate that's going on in the WTO?
Well, again, I think it's varied across different states. One of the important elements here is that the fisheries that benefit the most from subsidies aren't necessarily huge contributors to global food security. There was a time when that wasn't necessarily the case. And in the 50s and 60s, when a lot of nations in the post-World War II era were building up their industrial fishing fleets, subsidizing that capacity for many reasons seemed like a pretty good idea to actually go out and create the opportunities to catch ocean fisheries, ocean seafood resources, and build up food supplies. But we quickly learned that that actually led to a lot of overfishing, or at least encouraged a lot of overfishing, and that's really not a good way to go.